will dance the can with our friends at ICANN till the UK government signs up to ban the bomb. So we will dance the can with our friends at ICANN now the UN treaty is in force. We say we will dance the can with our friends at ICANN till the UK government signs up to ban the bomb. So we will dance the can with our friends at ICANN now the UN treaty is in force. Many states have ratified, but we will not be satisfied till the world is free of nuclear weapons. We will keep on dancing. Many states have ratified, but we will not be satisfied till the world is free of nuclear weapons. We will dance. Sign the treaty, make the world a safer place. Sign the treaty, make the world a safer place. Sign the treaty, make the world a safer place. Sign the treaty, let us live in peace, in peace, in peace, in peace, in peace. We say we will dance the can with our friends at ICANN till the UK government signs us to ban the bomb. So we will dance the can with our friends at ICANN now the UN treaty is in force. We say we will dance the can with our friends at ICANN till the UK government signs up to ban the bomb. So we will dance the can with our friends at ICANN now the UN treaty is in force.
Hey, brilliant. Thank you very much. Many of you will have seen that already, but some of you might not have. That was a fantastic little video made to celebrate the coming into force of the treaty for the prohibition of nuclear weapons, as I'm sure you're aware. So I'm Dave Webb, from Chair of Yorkshire CND. Welcome to this, I think, very important session where we're going to try to work out where the campaign goes from here. We were all celebrating in January, and many of you did some fantastic work at getting the message out that we've got the treaty now. So what do we do next? And we're going to go through around the region, hearing from different people with what their thoughts are about what happened when the treaty came into fruition and what their plans might be for the future. But they've only got a few minutes each, so it won't be terribly long, but it will give us a chance to get an idea of what people are thinking and what plans there might be afoot in the near future. Many of you will probably have seen already that the doomsday clock of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientist is stationary at 100 seconds to midnight, which is partly good, partly bad. It means that things, in their opinion anyway, haven't got worse, but they haven't really got better either. And there are some promising things, but also some negative things. So nuclear weapons are still being produced, for newer nuclear weapons, which will pose more problems to us in the future. They're going to be more accurate, faster, and also have maneuverable ability. And also they may be indistinguishable from missiles with conventional warheads, which makes them even more dangerous. On the other hand, we have got rid of Trump, thank goodness, or at least the US public did, thank goodness for that. But there are still problems. Biden isn't likely to go into nuclear disarmament. He won't be signing the treaty, and he's still going ahead with many of the plans for the improvement in inverted commas of the nuclear arsenal. So there are still some difficulties to overcome. On the other hand, we have got a lot of people with us in the rest of the world. We know now. We've also seen from recent recent poll commissioned by CND that around 60% of people in Britain feel that the government should sign the treaty, and a lot more, 75% I think it is, who said that we should actually nuclear disarmament would be a good thing, basically, globally. And of course it would. So we are going to go around the region, as I say, but first of all, we're going to talk with, hang on, I better look at my, we're going to talk with Tom Unterrainer, who is a vice chair of CND and has a kind of a European and somewhat international view of how things are. So we're going to ask him how we might work towards a new phase of peace campaigning. So Tom, I see you're there, but I can't see you on my screen at the moment.
I'm here, Dave.
Hey Tom, thanks for joining us.
Hello, and hello everybody. It's great to see everybody here from Yorkshire. I'm not from Yorkshire. I'm from an adjacent county, which is obviously a much finer place to be residing than Yorkshire, the lovely county of Nottinghamshire. But I'm not sure, given the horrible COVID restrictions, that we're seeing much apart from the four corners of our living rooms. But it's lovely to be here, and thanks for inviting me. Look, the TPNW was a game changer in terms of our approach to our ultimate aim of complete nuclear abolition, the complete denuclearization of the planet. Why is that? You know, the treaty came into force a couple of weeks ago. Have nuclear weapons disappeared? Have they been banned? Have the nuclear powers caved in? Have they said that we will give up our weapons forever, decommission them? No, they haven't. And that is no surprise to anybody on this chat, and it's not a surprise to anybody who campaigned for the TPNW to come into force. But what the TPNW did for the first time, you know, after decades upon decades of efforts, there was a global, wide-ranging, cooperative stance taken by the non-nuclear armed states to say, we want these things banned, first of all. A message to the world saying we want these things banned. Second of all, saying there is no way we will ever have nuclear weapons ourselves. We don't want American or anybody else's nuclear weapons in our country, stationed here or passing through. And it was a message to the world and to the nuclear powers to say, we are going to keep raising this issue. We are going to keep up with the demand to scrap nuclear weapons for complete nuclear disarmament globally, and we have drawn a line in the sand. And the TPNW came about both through protracted efforts at coordination and cooperation between non-nuclear armed states, facilitated by the brilliant work done by ICANN, but it was also born out of a sense of frustration, because for decades, you know, just 6 months after the United States dropped atomic weapons on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was the first UN General Assembly, which took place in London. And the very first resolution that General Assembly passed called for the abolition of nuclear weapons. 75 years on, more than 75 years on, and after many false starts and after many attempts which were scuppered and forced into the long grass by the United States, Britain, France, and the other nuclear armed states, the rest of the world said, we've had enough. They've drawn a line in the sand. So this is a monumental occasion, a monumental happening, okay? And what the TPNW does is establish a global normality. It says that most states, most of the world, outright rejects this, outright repudiates the very idea that any state should possess nuclear weapons. And it's a massive, massive victory. So let's return to where we are now. Given this enormous happening and its significance, where are we now? And to see some of the problems which still confront us, and to relate to some of the problems that still confront us, which should kind of shape what we do in terms of our campaigns, we only have to look at Europe, okay? And I've spent quite a lot of time the past few years focusing on what's going on in Europe, and together with CND and other peace groups throughout Europe, trying to coordinate some sort of action, because it became clear after Trump scrapped the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty that once again the question of US nuclear weapons in Europe and other nuclear weapons in Europe, the French and British nuclear capabilities, were a major issue. Nuclear weapons is a European-wide issue and needs a European-wide solution. The scrapping of the INF raised the prospect once more that the United States, and this was under the Trump administration, might consider the stationing of intermediate range missile forces in mainland Europe. There were questions about where they might be. There were questions about what type of weapons they would be exactly, old ones, more recent ones, or a new generation being developed, but that spectre was raised. And more than that, you had this move to scrap the INF Treaty alongside a whole other series of steps from the United States President Trump to drastically undermine arms control, non-proliferation, and other bilateral agreements with what the United States and the UK would term, and other European NATO states in Europe would term, strategic allies. So nuclear tensions were rising. At the same time, you had the deployment of missile defense systems, US missile defense systems and missile bases in both Poland and Romania, again ratcheting up huge tension. So as part of the picture of the process that led to the coming into force of the INF Treaty, you had, and Europe's just one example of where these nuclear tensions were drastically increasing and military tensions were increasing. There were other parts of the world where this was happening as well. So as part of this general picture, you had an overall increase in nuclear tension. So CND, peace groups across Europe started to discuss what proposals, what issues we could combine on, what a possible campaign would look like to raise the issues of how we tackle these increased nuclear tensions, to raise the question in the context of the TPNW, and to think about what sort of campaigns we could possibly have. So there have been a series of meetings and a series of discussions, and the conclusion of these is that we would focus first and foremost on the presence of US nuclear weapons, not ones that we might anticipate would be placed in Europe after the fall of the INF Treaty, but US nuclear weapons and other nuclear weapons, the French and British versions, which were already here, already based in Europe. And one of the key elements of this, and this is an issue which is sharpened in the context of the TPNW, is the fact that NATO member states, specifically Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and Italy, and there are a similar arrangement with Turkey, are involved in a nuclear sharing arrangement as part of their NATO commitments, in inverted commas, but also as an artifact of US nuclear imperialism in Europe. And this nuclear sharing arrangement works like this. These states, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and Italy, not only have to agree under the nuclear sharing agreement to house nuclear bombs in their countries. There are 20 in Belgium, 20 US nuclear bombs in Belgium, 20 in Holland, 20 in Germany, 70 in Italy. They not only have to agree to house them, but under their NATO commitments, they are duty bound to drop these bombs at the say-so of the US president. Okay, they could be deployed at the say-so of the US president. So even though as sovereign states, I hate that term, even though as sovereign states, none of these countries are nuclear powers in and of themselves, in fact, they have nuclear bombs, US ones, and they're committed by treaty to deploy them, to drop them, if the circumstances so arise. So in September this year, there'll be a series of protests around the Buchel base in Germany, Kleinbrugel in Belgium, the Volkel air base in the Netherlands. And also there are likely to be protests at Aviano and Gallitor in Italy, a month of coordinated protests to highlight the presence of these US bombs in Europe. And this is important, if we're going to have a pathway to nuclear disarmament, complete nuclear disarmament in Europe, it can go one of a number of ways. Yeah, you can have a nuclear breakout. So you can imagine at some point, a possible scenario. It might seem unimaginable, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility, and we have hope that France or the UK would renounce their nuclear weapons. Okay, and that would have a domino effect. You could also imagine situations where these countries, based on the nuclear sharing agreement, will at some point say, we don't want US bombs in our country anymore, and we're not going to drop them when you tell us. And in Germany in particular, where there's a long-standing and very vibrant campaigns around this question, this is a matter of actual political discussion. It's a live discussion in the Social Democratic Party in Germany, amongst the Greens, although there are some issues there because they're likely to go into government with Conservatives when there's an election later this year. But it's a real live issue. The vast bulk of the German population do not want US bombs in their country, and do not want the German military and air force to be in a position where they might have to drop them. So you can imagine a scenario where one of the nuclear sharing states repudiates nuclear weapons, and that has a similar domino effect. So CND nationally will also be having analogous similar protests in the UK around Old Marston, possibly up in Faslane. There will be protests in France against the force de frappe, the French nuclear weapon system. But this will be a coordinated month of activity. And now, given the coming into force of the TPNW, it's in the context of an international movement, a state-backed international movement, which has repudiated nuclear weapons. And one of the key demands, the key ideas around all of this activity is that we want to make progress towards developing the idea and enacting the idea of a nuclear weapons-free zone throughout Europe. From the UK to however far we can get to the east, we want a mass of land like there is in every single continent on Earth, apart from in Europe, despite that Europe is the home of the idea of nuclear weapons-free zones. We want a nuclear weapons-free zone in Europe. I just want to say one more thing about the TPNW, because the situation I've described, as I've described it, we're now in a situation where, in the space of Europe as a whole, and in the UK in particular, you have US-backed nuclear weapons, and I would include the UK's nuclear weapon system in that, confronting, the will of the vast majority of states and peoples on the planet. You have a minority with nuclear weapons which says, we have them, we're going to keep them, we will put them wherever we want. And you have a majority of the world which says, we don't want them, take them away, scrap them yourselves. So how does the TPNW, beyond this urge and this movement and this inspiration that it's provided, how does it help? How does it assist our campaigns? Well, there are very practical ways, and lots of people are doing important work on making the implications, the legal implications of the TPNW a reality. But one thing that I've been thinking about just over the past couple of days is one particular element of the TPNW, and that's Article 7 and point 6. I don't know how many people have read the TPNW in detail. It's not that long, it's worth having a look. But Article 7.6 is on nuclear tests and the legacy of nuclear tests. And one thing that's happened in the past week is that the government of Algeria has placed a sharp demand on the government of France for reparations for the legacy of French nuclear tests in the Algerian Sahara. So starting from 1961, and I think they went up to 1965, the French staged a whole number of explosive detonations of atomic and then nuclear weapons in the Algerian Sahara. And then they buried the evidence and have since refused to tell the Algerian government where they've buried this nuclear waste. Yeah,
I'm sorry to hurry you, Tom, but we...
I'll finish on this point. Okay. And the TPNW says that every signatory, every supporter should combine, and the countries at fault should make reparations. So, so we should combine. You don't have to be in a country that's a signatory of the TPNW. We should make demands on the French government. We should investigate the similar legacies of nuclear testing in the British government, because this is all part of building a picture of delegitimizing nuclear weapons, and that's part of our task. We've had a massive boost. It's a huge international effort which CND and everybody here was part of, and we should throw our weight behind every effort to achieve total global nuclear abolition.
Thank you very much, Tom. Thanks. I'm sorry to hurry you there, but we've got a lot of people to hear from, and you know, not a huge amount of time really. But
I need shutting up, Dave. Sorry.
No, so you should never really be shut up. But thank you anyway. That was brilliant, and I think gives us some ideas and some thoughts to go on with. I think it would be good now if we could travel around the region a bit and see what other people are thinking across the region. I thought Tom might be the one who's the furthest away from the region, but I've just noticed in the chat box that there's Dr. Mahbub Hussain from Dhaka in Bangladesh. So that must be the furthest person we've got on the call. And thanks for joining us, Mahbub. That's brilliant. Thank you. Hope things are okay with you. Okay, so first, our first port of call in our trip around the region is to Bradford, in fact. And I think Bradford has sent us a video to show. Is that right, Jonas? Can you show us the video? Oh, Molly's there.
I'm here, but I haven't got power over the video.
Okay. I think Jonas is working on that.
Do you want me to talk while it's...
Yeah, carry on while we're... Oh, here we go.
Oh, here it is, here it is.
Excellent work. Well done. Over to you, Molly.
Unmuted, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so that little video we did a fortnight before the 22nd of January, and it was put out on YouTube on the 22nd of January, and has had hundreds of people looking at it, so we were pleased about that. And you might have noticed all the different styles of dropping bits of paper, which is very important. Since then, we have campaigned with local councillors, and the idea is to try and get Bradford Council to join with Manchester and the other places to become nuclear free. We're also going to try and do parish councils and town councils. And we're using mostly people's connections, because we found that's the best way. If somebody knows somebody who knows somebody that's in a particular party, to try and get them to put things through. So at the moment in Bradford, we're hoping that a motion will be taken to the April council meeting. And we're also going to celebrate 3 months after the treaty was signed. So April, it's not the 22nd, it's the 23rd. We're going to do what we were planning to do on January the 22nd, and we're having a walk around a lake in the local park with music and lights and the CND symbol to celebrate. And we're hoping this will be time for local media to catch on, because they didn't really the first time round. So we're hoping that they'll be there to catch on and just to increase the celebration that we're having. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Molly. Thanks a lot, and best of luck with your work.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Okay, from Bradford, we're moving on to Sheffield now, and Hilary Smith, I hope, is with us.
Hi, yes, there's 3 other people from Sheffield on the call, so they can come in if I forget something. I think maybe quite a lot of you will have seen that we made, in advance of the 22nd, sort of in the build-up, the 3-month build-up, we made pennants of each of the then 51 countries that had ratified the treaty. And we managed to, and so they were done separately by people in their own homes, and we managed to get them put together in advance of the day and get a photograph taken of them. And it was used for a celebratory video that was made up in Scotland by Penny Stone and others in Edinburgh, with the can dance and song, which I think got a lot of shows on social media. Obviously, we've still got all those pennants, and we hope that in the future we're going to be able to use them. And it was useful to us in terms of educating and reminding ourselves about the countries that have ratified, and also where the movement and the push for this treaty has come from, and particularly thinking about the nuclear free Pacific movement and so on. So it was a helpful educating thing for us along the way. We did manage to get an article into the Sheffield Star either on the day or the day before the 22nd. We've had one with, like most people, we're meeting on Zoom at the moment, and we've had sort of one discussion about like a way forward. And obviously one of our goals, as with others, is to try and get Sheffield City Council to sign up to the pledge. We did have an event on Zoom on the day of the treaty, which with hindsight we now wish that we'd videoed, but we were a bit modest and weren't sure how good it would be. In fact, we thought it was a really good event. We had a little video and we had some songs, and the mayor of Sheffield came. This is a ceremonial mayor, not an elected mayor, and he's a very strong supporter. He always comes to the Hiroshima Day events, so it was good that we kept that connection. But I think we're very mindful of the issues around connecting with the global south, and the whole issue that you mentioned, Tom, at the end about testing and the legacy of testing, and thinking about that, and some of the measures in the treaty, is measures the right word, the issues about reparations and about recognising the damage already done. So not thinking just about those who were killed and injured as a result of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but thinking much more widely. I don't know if anyone else from Sheffield wants to come in, or anything that I've forgotten. I mean, we're just discussing in general terms, really, our thinking. 3 of our 6 MPs have signed the pledge, but I think not done a lot else.
That's wonderful. Thanks very much, Hilary. That's excellent. I'm sure that we're all in the same boat in that we're trying to think of what to do next, and that's partially what this is all about, really.
But it's really energised us, for sure.
Excellent. Wonderful. Yeah. Keep up the good work. Brilliant.
Just to say, the other issue that we talked about was that uranium mining related to nuclear weapons industry. And we would like to actually look at that a bit more, particularly in relation to some of the indigenous groups in North America.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. And also Australia, I think, too. But fantastic. Okay, now we're moving on again. And this time we're going to Keighley, and Sylvia is with us. Over to you, Sylvia.
Sylvia, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, yeah. I have. But I have no photograph of me. I don't see myself, do I? All right, thank you. Sorry about that interruption. Yes, on the 22nd, luckily the sun did shine, didn't it? And I think our aim of a few of us who realised we couldn't act as a group, and we weren't au fait with so much with social media, I'm afraid. It's how to act singly, but as a group. But we did, and the prospect of bell ringing seemed to be a prospect, but unfortunately it wasn't a parish church, it was a single bell. So we hung banners in various places. We raised the United Nations flag at the Civic Hall, Civic Centre, and hung one of the band flags on the fence there. When I say we, this is individual acts. We weren't an organised group, remember. Someone distributed white poppies in the in Cliff Castle Park. It was a lovely morning. So we did various things. We'd had letters in the paper. The Keighley News did cover us quite well and include photographs. We've gone through trying to present a motion resolution to Keighley Town Council, which unfortunately will fail, but it's ongoing. And we're obviously trying to support the move to get Bradford to sign the against the treaty. So there's lots of little things that we did on that day, but I can honestly say it was a joyous day and for which I'm forever grateful. But the hard work comes now, and all the issues that have been mentioned, especially as I say, I'm so pleased with things, because after all, the vast majority of the nation states who signed are from countries which haven't had nuclear weapons, aren't going to produce, and have signed the NPT treaty. So how can we be acting against the NP treaty? And trying to write letters in response to the issues to our MP is a soul-destroying action, I'm afraid I'm feeling at the moment, but we will persevere. So in our small way, we will keep going. So thank you very much, Yorkshire CND.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you. And it's no small way. You'll believe me, you're doing a fantastic job, even though you may think it's small. It's a wonderful contribution. Okay, so next we're moving on again. And this time we're coming to Leeds, and Hugh, I think, is there.
Yes, this is Hugh Hubbard from Leeds, and the Leeds CND has actually been quite active for a while. We have been planning various events, but they've all been curtailed because of the pandemic. We had actually planned to have an event in Millennium Square on the day that the 50th ratification took place, but we had to curtail that one, and also we've had to curtail what we can do in Leeds on the 22nd. But we did the UN flag did fly above the City Hall, Civic Hall. There was a tree planted at Park Square, and we had various banners and photo shoots. But I think the big thing was that about 10 days before, Leeds City Council had a meeting and passed a motion to endorse ICANN City's appeal supporting the TPNW, which we've been lobbying for quite a while. It was put forward by David Blackburn, the Green councillor, but we also did a lot of lobbying, particularly of the councillors in the Labour Party, but fortunately the Labour Party councillors saw this was a good move and voted in a block to support it. I mean, this goes with Leeds having a long history of anti-nuclear peace promotion. It was one of the first cities to become a nuclear-free local authority. It joined with Mayors for Peace. It also produced Leeds and the Bomb in the 1980s, detailing what would happen to a city if a nuclear weapon occurred. We also had Bob Over, the emergency planning officer, who was lobbied and worked for national government to change policy on civil defence. We work with Peace Links, which is a number of different organisations across the city. We've got 3 very active MPs who've signed the pledge: Fabian Hamilton, Shadow Minister for Peace and Disarmament, Richard Bergen, and Alex Sopel, who I believe is actually now involved with asking questions in the House on Menwith Hill. And we are working to get other MPs to sign the peace pledge, working with councillors, faith leaders, and so on. Personally, on the 22nd, I couldn't join the celebrations in the evening because I'm proposing a motion to my local Labour Party supporting the TPNW and asking the Labour Party as policy to sign the pledge. This is Leeds Central. Hilary Benn, the MP, spoke against, but we managed to get it passed, which I think was useful. But I think it's also useful to look at the way motions can be taken forward in order to overcome the standard argument that signing the pledge is just unilateral, because he's always talking about, Hilary Benn's always talking about it, multilateral, i.e., well, from our point of view, is doing nothing. The only other thing I want to say, which is really a Yorkshire CND thing rather than a Leeds thing, and that is some of us in the region are involved in Nuke Watch, and that is tracking the convoys, the nuclear weapons convoys, as they come up from Burfield up to Coalport to put the weapons on the submarines. And for the most part, they come up through Yorkshire, up the A1. And we follow it from when it either sets off from Burfield or from Faz Lane, and we pick it up as this kind of central stretch. We've got about 2 or 3 people who are watching it or chasing it, and we can we do our best to find out which way it's actually going once it gets up past Scotch Corner. We're a bit curtailed because of the lockdown, but we still managed to track it to some extent. I think that's all I've got to say.
Thank you very much, Hugh. Thanks a lot. Excellent. And we'll move on again to the Calder Valley. I hope it's not, you're not all snowed in up there. Michael Pryor.
Yeah, I'll just because Julia Mercer is going to follow on from me with some other issues that we've been developing. I just simply want to mention 2 things that we've done. We've obviously been impeded by the lockdown, which has prevented any kind of gathering outside and meetings inside. So there are 2 things that I'd like to draw your attention to. We've developed the use of video to give us some idea of people meeting together. The first of these was on November the 11th, when we always have a white poppy laying at our local Hebden Bridge War Memorial. We do this very respectfully, and the local and so on and so on. But this year, obviously, we couldn't do this together. But what happened was we had a presentation by an individual explaining it, a laying, and then a reading of a couple of poems, all done by individuals by the memorial and so on. And we videoed these. And perhaps I should explain for people, it's very, very easy to put forward the kind of video movie that you've seen from Bradford and so on. You just need a smartphone with a video and a little bit of software. We use a thing called iMovie, which is a free downloaded app where you can put together video clips and put on a voice overlay, so you can, and titles and things. So the first one we did was November the 11th, the white poppy laying. Then on January the 22nd, again, obviously impeded from the demonstration we were planning to have. Again, we had a series of individuals who made their own separate presentation. One person reading out a statement, other people ringing bells, other people just standing there, waving placards up on the hills and so on, and all put together into a single video. These have been quite successful for ourselves. We are a small group in the Upper Calder. The second one has now had over 120 views, and it's on the Yorkshire CND website. And I do hope that you'll go to it and look at it and share it, because I think it is a good example of how we can use these things. We also videoed a Zoom meeting where people made individual contributions. I put both of those links up, and I'd be very grateful if you could look at them, share them, and so on, because we do think this is a very good way of, well, showing that we're doing something and also making the appearance of there being a meeting and everyone saying things. So I put the links up. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thanks a lot. Keep on keeping on.
And Julia will now say something about the other activities.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Julia.
There we go. Am I okay? Hello all. Lovely to see you, especially old friends. Yeah, unfortunately, Kathy, our head person, who we're rather lost without, couldn't really do much because she's very busy at the moment doing other things about COVID, but we're really hoping to, you know, take up the strain a bit. So Michael's more or less talked about how we celebrated. Some rang bells as well. And we got lots of photos out on the airwaves, on social media. So we did our best really with the electronics, and future plans are really pretty much what we're already involved with. So the pledge campaign is is going sort of very slowly, really, and more on a sort of quite a low level, but we are getting to get a lot of support in the town councils, that sort of bit of local government. So Todmorden Town Council, Blackshaw Head Parish Council, and also Hebden Royd Town Council have all signed the pledge. And we're really hoping that Calderdale will. We're not quite sure where we are with Calderdale, but we'll be following that up, because that's our, you know, main umbrella council. I'm with Richard, who I think is here somewhere, Richard Outram, trying to get some faith leaders involved in signing the pledge. Our vicar here in Todmorden, as promised he will, and I've approached Hebden St James's, Karen at Hebden St James's, and And we're just developing local links with Hebden Royd Town Council a bit stronger. And that's also a lovely thing with ginkgo seeds. I don't know if anybody knows about the ginkgo seeds. They're from a tree that survived the Hiroshima blast somehow, miraculously. So it's a great symbol of regeneration and renewal. And some seeds, I think, arrived in Halifax in the care of Calderdale Council, and are being reared in a greenhouse in the park in Halifax. So that's a rather lovely thing that's ongoing locally. I think that's about all, really. Is there anything else, Michael? Anything you want to plug in there?
I think that's all we have time for, really, anyway, Julia. Thanks ever so much.
We just keep on trying.
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on.
It was a
keeping
great
on.
day.
That's
Yeah, it was a
brilliant.
great day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And we're moving on again to, this time to Grassington, higher up in the north of the region, with Dave Knight. Where are you, Dave?
I'm there. I'm here, should I say,
Here.
rather than there. Could be there as well. We're very small and like many parts of the region, quite old. But we did do some things like, could I share my screen, please? The host has disabled it.
Yeah, Jonas will give you permission.
You can share now.
Thanks, Jonas. Oh, that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to share that. How's that?
Can't see anything, no.
No? Oh, God, what's that? That's not what I was after. That's what I was after.
Yep, there we go.
There we got that. Good. Like many people, we made use of Yorkshire CND's wonderful greetings cards. And we sent them, some people sent them as Christmas cards, others New Year cards, and others on for the 22nd. Families, friends, the Prime Minister, Foreign Secretary, Defence Secretary, Keir Starmer, who clearly needs some encouragement, and our own MP, but also some local councillors in preparation for future work. We then, on the day, I say we, it's individuals, bell ringing, including at our parish church. Grassington's parish church is actually in a smaller village nearby, Linton, and one of our members, Bunty, is there ringing the bells. It doesn't look like traditional bell ringing, but I assure you she is ringing the bells. Olivia livened up part of Skipton, and she is ringing a bell and actually dancing the can-can at the same time, but I haven't put the video on, just the still from it. And there's one of those great flags. Richard paraded round his village, which is even smaller, Hawkswick, trying to liven people up and announcing what was happening. As well as that, we had posters that I created, and we have our own notice board in Grassington, but also hope that members have put them up in other places around the villages, because we are Grassington and district. I'm just going to escape from that if I can, and then stop share. Brilliant. So what we were also doing is trying to lobby our MP in more detail. people sent him emails, and the fortunate thing, of course, is he's Julian Smith, former Northern Ireland Secretary and Chief Whip, and very much the party line. So we just get the standard response from the Ministry of Defence or the Foreign Office, whichever he turned to. So I had a phone call with him, and because he doesn't think for himself and doesn't really know anything about it, I gave him a good 10-minute lecture on the failure of the step-by-step approach to nuclear disarmament, which Hugh mentioned a few minutes ago, and that there's only partial success from the NPT. But I also emphasized, and I think it's something we should do in the future, that the TPNW is not in conflict with the NPT. This is something which the government, our government, are saying that it conflicts with the NPT, and I think it's important that we emphasize that it doesn't, that it actually complements it. And there are various ways of talking about that. We've also had 2 letters in the local press. Richard wrote one announcing that the weapons would be made illegal on the 22nd. And I put in a sort of report letter. I sent a report into the Craven Herald, that's our local paper, with pictures, photographs and so on. But I think there was too much opinion in it, so they didn't publish it. So I wrote it in as a letter with rather more opinion and less reporting. The only picture, I'm afraid, the photograph they used was the one of the parish church, but at least it created a bit more interest on the letters page. As for the future, well, we are going to try and get resolutions at councils, the county council. We've got a problem with our district council because at this time the government is trying to turn North Yorkshire into a unitary authority, or possibly 2 unitary authorities, which means our district council would disappear. So I'm not sure whether we're going to get very far with that one. And possibly we'll have a go at the Yorkshire Dales National Park, but I'm not sure that they're going to bite at all. More generally, I think it's important to emphasize that the TPNW complements the NPT, and that the NPT has only been partially successful, and the fact that UK is replacing Trident is an example of that lack of success, and that we should try, whenever we're talking about Trident, link to the TPNW as well.
Okay, Dave, your time's up.
That's it.
Thanks ever so much. For somebody who starts to say, oh, we're only a small group, you've actually done a hell of a lot. And thank you very much for that report. Excellent work. Let's move on again now. Some of you will know, or many of you, probably all of you, that we have a base in this region. We have 2 bases really, but this particular one, Menwith Hill, has been in the news for quite some time. And one of the main people in the campaign against Menwith Hill is Martin Schweiger, who's going to report, I think, on behalf of the Menwith Hill Accountability Campaign. Thanks, Martin.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Can I ask if I can share my screen? I'll try to. Yes, I think I probably can.
You'll be able to, Martin.
Great. Yeah. Let's see how it goes. If I can get it to do the right things. Right. Well, I hope you can see some golf balls, famously on the side of the A59 as you go out of Skipton. or go out of Harrogate on the way to Skipton. Menwith Hill, for those who don't know it, is a focus for a lot of covert surveillance. It's primarily an American base. There are a few UK personnel there, but they're in the minority. A lot of the surveillance collects a vast amount. There's something called sniff it all. Collect all the information you can. On the basis of that, targets are identified for action, which may mean their elimination. We think when General Soleimani was assassinated, that was coordinated or at least facilitated by some of the actions and the clever toys at Menwith. These toys are mostly managed by the Americans, the National Security Administration, and their National Reconnaissance Office. There is also a contingent of people from the British GCHQ there. But we have to remember that from Yorkshire soil, or facilitated through Yorkshire soil, probably most days of the week, drones are being flown which kill people. There are people like Chris Cole who can say a lot more about the drones, but undoubtedly Menwith Hill is involved in the location of targets and triangulating them so that targets can be eliminated. That surveillance is not publicly accountable in the USA, and it certainly isn't accountable in the UK. So people are being killed from Yorkshire, and there is no local input whatsoever, and no UK government input, at least not to make it accountable. We're very pleased to see the treaty come in. One, because we think that Menwith Hill, if there is a nuclear attack is ever launched by the Americans, and we've heard before how many of the nuclear weapons are actually in American hands, even if they're based in other countries or even on so-called British Trident submarines. But it would be Menwith Hill would almost certainly be involved in targeting those nuclear attacks. But that in its own right makes Menwith Hill a potential target. And I think we shouldn't forget that that could be quite, we talk about let's protect the NHS from COVID, a small nuclear exchange would do a lot more damage. If you're trying to get a quick bird's eye view, thank you Google Earth, this is Menwith Hill. You can see it's quite a big site. This is unlikely to be considered to be eliminated by a single weapon. It would be either multiple weapons or a single nuclear attack to take out this surveillance base, which almost certainly, if the Russian or the Chinese were to attack, this would be very rapidly would become a #1 target. Just very briefly, use the opportunity to say Menwith Hill Accountability Campaign always welcomes every bit of help we can get. And we do appreciate the help and support we've had from CND. We need to find the facts. We need to check those facts are correct. We need a lot of awareness raising. Far too many people have no idea what goes on at Menwith Hill. But it's actually, we're killing people from Yorkshire. What else do you need to know? We need to lobby for change. We obviously want help to encourage local and national governments to support the TPNW. Anyone who's very good at doing websites and wants to help us with our website, very welcome. And once COVID is gone, you're welcome on a Tuesday night to come and stand in the cold outside Menwith and either wave at the people coming in and out, hold some flags, put up banners, and generally try to encourage people to say, there's something very wrong going on here. And of course, if somebody wants to give us a lot of money, we'll find a very good use for it to promote peace in what's actually a very dangerous part of Yorkshire. But do remember the Menwith Hill Accountability Campaign. We hope that it's complementary to a lot of the work that CND is doing. And at that point, I'll draw that to an end. But anyone who wants to find out, do get in touch. We'd be more than happy to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Martin, and thanks to all in the Menwith Hill Accountability Campaign for their really strong dedication to the opposition to the base. Thanks very much. And we're moving again on this time to Huddersfield and Betty's, I think.
Yes, hello everybody. It's lovely to be here and it's great to hear all these inspiring stories. So on the day, thanks to Matt and Jonas, we took delivery, well, the day before, of the huge banner, and we managed to get into St George's Square, which is in front of the railway station in Huddersfield. So if I just pull to one side, you can see it was quite a task holding that huge banner. And when we stepped onto St George's Square, it was very, very slippery. It was very icy. And so we were trying to lean to one side to pull it straight to see the words properly. But that went off early in the morning, managed to get that done in time for the Twitter storm. So we managed to get that picture across social media and be part of that Twitter storm later on in the day. A bit later than that, a couple of days, maybe a week or so later, that we managed to get a billboard in Manchester. So because we're Huddersfield Quakers, but we're linked to through Trident Ploughshares and to other Quakers in Scotland, and they linked us to a billboard agency, Jacks, who had billboards in Manchester, and so we found out the price of how much it would be to have a poster up there, a couple of posters, and in the end we shared the cost with Manchester Peace Group. So we paid 142 and they paid 142 for two big posters, and the billboard company also gave us a couple of extra ones. And again, it's the photos, isn't it, that we managed to get across the world, and a lot of people in Germany have been posting those pictures. I'm part of a nuclear abolition group, NAG, for Northern Friends Peace Board Quakers across the north of England, and Janet Fenton's part of that group, who is the person who helped at United Nations to get this ban treaty in place. And so it's been good to, I think, thinking about the future, connections with other groups are going to be really, really important, aren't they? We have a regular vigil online once a month. It's only short, it's 30 minutes, and people show their banners, but again, it's a chance to chat. It's not always about nuclear weapons, it's about other things as well. We've been doing a book group because we're all locked down, so the book group has been really important, and we've read George Lakey, How We Win, about campaigning. That's been really important, and we're also reading Andrew Feinstein's book Shadow World, amongst other books. We're part of the Quaker Roots group, which is a national group trying to get people down to protest at the Dicey Arms Fair, and there is a nuclear day there. Whether it'll happen in person this year, we don't know, but we are beginning to get people gathered together and connected to think about what we're going to do down there, and if we're not, what we're going to do online. We're also protesting at the Police and Security Fair that's coming in February. So the future is Zoom is the future. Look, we've got somebody in Bangladesh here tonight. How fantastic is that? Maybe we could do a record-breaking online vigil. That'd be great. I don't know how big Zoom can go. Allies, definitely linking with other people. That's the future, isn't it? Making things fun like the Can, that was absolutely brilliant. And yeah, looking forward to doing something at Dicey this year at the Arms Fair in London.
Thank you very much, Anne. Wonderful, thank you. That's all amazing stuff. Many of you have mentioned about the pledges and the resolutions to councils, and the person who's really been coordinating all of that work through the region for Yorkshire CND is Richard Outram, and he's here with us today and will give us a few words on strategies around pledges. So over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Dave. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you all. Some of you I've met previously in various campaigns, and the rest of you I hope to meet at some point in the future. So as Dave says, basically I've been involved really since January of last year with a campaign to try and engage politicians and faith leaders, the way basically we're doing that, and what I've been focusing on, is trying to take the message out to parish and town councils. So these are the, the first tier of local government, as it's often called. We've seen, and it's been mentioned already, that a number of major local authorities have passed resolutions in favour of the UK government actually signing the TPNW. But my role's been kind of really taking the message to the lower authorities, the small town and parish councils, and we've had some success there. Colleagues have already mentioned that we've been to, Keighley, Todmorden, Hebden, Royd had already passed it. I'm pleased to say my own parish council, where I was a parish councillor at one point, Shaw and Crompton, because I live just over the border in Greater Manchester, we passed a resolution as well. And it's my hope in the future to go to other parish councils. We have a kind of a database of target councils, but if anybody here tonight is a parish councillor or knows parish councillors, or is a parish council clerk or knows a parish council clerk, then I'd be very keen to talk to you about how we can take a resolution to your local authority. The other side of my work has been really trying to engage local politicians, so municipal councillors at every level, really. And what we did was create a councillors pledge, and that was because a lot of our councillors found it difficult to engage with the ICANN parliamentary pledge, which specifically is targeted at parliamentarians. And although there was latitude for people to sign that who were local authority members, a lot of local authority members we found didn't really want to. So we decided to create something bespoke using the ICANN logo and much of the wording from the parliamentary pledge. And we've been taking that out to councillors both at the municipal district level and also at the parish council level. And we've had some success in signing people from all parties and none in terms of supporting that pledge. And basically it's an individual pledge where people ask for the UK government to sign the TPNW and to indicate they support that. So again, the obvious thing to say, if anybody is a councillor, here's your chance. You can sign it yourself, or if your partner is, or a friend is, or whatever. But again, we're keen to take it out through local political parties and local councils and get as many councillors to sign it in Yorkshire as we can. And the last thing I just wanted to mention was the faith leaders pledge that we created as well. This was something I was quite keen to do because I was conscious of the fact there wasn't anything in place where faith leaders could actually indicate the support for a nuclear-free world, and again in favour of the UK government supporting the signing of the TPNW. So we created this bespoke faith leaders pledge. I don't know if Jonas can show one of the slides I sent him, which is a really lovely picture from Coventry Cathedral actually, which is quite inspiring. But basically, yes, here it is. So this is the Bishop of Coventry, Christopher Coxworth, who actually signed the pledge in the cathedral, which is a really lovely backdrop, as you can see. And we've actually had 6 bishops sign the pledge, as well as other clergy people. At the moment, it's only been Christian churches that signed, and we want to emphasize it is a faith leaders pledge for leaders of all faiths, not just Christian faiths. But we have been working with Christian faiths, and in fact next Thursday I've actually got a meeting with Christian CND and Pax Christi, and I've already had a number of contacts with the Anglican Peace Fellowship, for example. So I'm hoping to work with religious peace groups. These are 2 councillors that have signed the councillors pledge that we developed, basically I'm hoping to work with peace groups that are from a religious background to actually get the pledge more widely disseminated. I'm also hoping to have contact this week with ICANN itself to see if we can look to launch this as an international initiative through ICANN. So there you have it. Yorkshire leads the way. So hopefully Yorkshire leads the world in terms of this. So as I say, if anybody's interested in either looking at a resolution to a parish or a town council, or if you're looking at promoting either of these two pledges, it'd be wonderful to hear from you, and I'm sure our contact details will go out to people at the end of the event. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, everybody. Keep up your great work, and let's move on to a nuclear-free world.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you. Well, that was an amazing roundup of news around the region, I think. Everybody kept remarkably well to time, and we're now finished at the time that we thought we might be, or we hoped we might be. There is some time left for questions or comments from you. If you want to raise an issue, then please maybe mention something in the chat or raise your hand and we can get you to ask your question live. I would say, let me just sum up a few things that I've got from the reports and so on that we've heard so far. First of all, I would emphasize, a number of people have said, oh, we're only a small group, you know, we can't do much. But no one is too small. Don't forget, everybody is equal in this. And the more we hear from various groups, where no matter how big or small they are, the better that is. And it's, you know, huge things grow from a small seed. So you're doing a wonderful job. We could tell from the regional reports. Mainly seems to be work has been focusing on council resolutions, pledges to be signed, etc. And that's fantastic, and that's really good way of carrying on. I could mention to you that I think National CND is thinking of organising, or will be organising, a workshop on this, where we'll be talking with people around the whole of the UK on what they've been doing, what their experiences are at putting resolutions forward, and so on. Very often you get asked the question, what kind of resolution should I put forward? You know, should it be the same as everybody else's, etc., etc. Personally, I don't think it needs to be, as long as it's a support for the TPNW and urges the government to sign. I think those are the main aspects of the resolution that should be put forward. Then, as Richard has emphasised, it's good to start with the first tier of local government, perhaps with town councils. You don't have to go straight to your city council or regional council. And then there's the faith leaders, which are a really growing campaign. So some of the other ideas that came up, I think ginkgo seeds as a symbol of renewal and regeneration is excellent. Also, it was clear that local newspapers, we didn't get a lot of coverage in the treaty coming into force nationally, but a lot of local newspapers have covered some of the activities of groups in the region. So it's a good idea to perhaps look at local newspapers. And also, I think, as Dave mentioned, maybe sometimes they prefer letters with an opinion rather than a kind of a press release or some other form of statement. Other things were given were connections with other groups, with other campaigns, with the Global South and testing and the legacy that's from the nuclear tests. So widen the issue out to make it show that it's a much more wider issue than just the possession of these nuclear weapons. They've done enough damage already. The use of videos was emphasized, white poppies during Armistice Day, the use of the greeting cards. I don't know if we still have any greeting cards left. I think we do, which we can always send out to people if you want to use them. They're not specifically geared for Christmas, but they do. And also the emphasis on the TPNW does not conflict with the MPT, despite what some MPs might be saying. Other things, poster campaigns, rather, reading some of the inspirational books and articles that can help you with ideas about how to go on from home, and linking with others, probably particularly with the climate change campaign. So thank you very much for all of that. Let me just see if there are some questions in the chat box. I think you've been quite busy with the chat area, and I see some questions have already been answered. Hilary was asking whether Tom could go through the plans for September. Is Tom still with us?
Could I just interrupt? I have to go now because I have
I'm
another
sure he is.
thing to do. Can I just say, having interrupted all this, lovely to see you all. It's a great inspiration, and I really do get energized by seeing you all. Thank you very much, and I have to go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Michael. Thanks a lot. Thank you. I think it's we've probably all been a bit energized by this because we can't get to see each other any other way, but this has been wonderful. Thank you. So I'm afraid we can't ask Tom. I don't think he's with us anymore.
I'm still here, Dave.
But, I'll ask him outside of this meeting.
I am still here, Dave.
Oh, you're still here? Oh, yeah. Tom. Right, great.
Only just though, because I've got to go.
Okay, can you answer the question?
I've got to go and give my son a bath in a minute, or one of them.
Okay.
So the activities are going to be spread across September. One of the reasons for this is that there are parliamentary elections, national elections in Germany, and also it's a case that the people coordinating the work across Europe, it's based on local existing campaigns. So I think the first thing that will happen is that there'll be a largest demonstration at the Buchel base at the beginning of September, and the Buchel base is in Germany. There are 20 US bombs there. It's at the start of September because there are German national elections towards the end of that month. The original plans were, because the Kleinbrugel base, the Buchel base, and the Vulkel base in the Netherlands are all fairly close to each other. So the original plan was that there'd be a cycle ride between these bases and a rolling series of protests. Obviously, COVID has put paid to those plans, but there will be individual demonstrations there. I think what we need to do is get exact dates for each of these demonstrations. I haven't got them to hand, and I think it would be brilliant actually if all the groups in Yorkshire CND can send solidarity messages and perhaps videos and stuff like that to these individual protests. I mean, I had grand visions of getting people and organising people to take their bikes and do the bike ride from the UK. Perhaps that'll be 2022 rather than 2021. But also importantly, there'll be activities in France, but also in the UK across this month to highlight the fact that the UK's nuclear weapons are in Europe. They're part of the problem. They're part of the picture, and I think there are, Dave probably knows more about this than I do, but there are initiatives to have something happen at Aldermaston, perhaps, have I remembered that correctly? And there are discussions about the possibility of some activity at Faz Lane. But that's the level of detail that there is now. Just in terms of kind of developing the campaign, there'll be a series of monthly webinars addressing some of the issues like what is nuclear sharing, what does it actually mean? How would we get a nuclear weapons free zone in Europe? How do they work elsewhere? And similar sort of discussions taking place. I'm sure Dave can share that information with Yorkshire CND members also. But I think this is an exciting moment for anti-nuclear campaigning. It's sparked by the TPNW. ICANN Europe, which is the European organising base of ICANN, is aware of what's happening. There are people participating from the ICANN Europe steering committee, and it's very much part of the general anti-nuclear campaign. Okay.
Thanks ever so much, Tom.
I'm going to go and give my oldest son a bath now.
Yeah, go and have your bath. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. See ya.
Very much.
Bye.
Good luck. Don't get wet.
I will get wet, but what can you do?
Okay, thanks a lot. All right. I think there was a question to Richard I saw in the box there somewhere about are you approaching, from Jackie Burke in Greater Manchester, are you approaching Saddleworth Parish Council?
Yeah, we just actually exchanged some emails about some chat about that, Dave. Yeah, Saddleworth Parish Council. Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's actually, you can actually technically say it is in Yorkshire because they'd certainly argue they're in Yorkshire. So it falls within our remit. Basically, the parish council's just approved an initiative that I'm also involved in called the Pledge to Peace. And we're expecting the council to appoint a peace champion very shortly, at which point it's probably worth having a discussion with that person about taking a resolution. The only problem we've got with parish council is there are rather a lot of conservatives on it who won't be very receptive, I suspect. So it'll be challenging, Chair.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that. Excellent. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in Yorkshire anyway? But thank you. I know we've got some people who aren't in Yorkshire on the call. One of them was Mahbud, who we've already mentioned, and he was saying, I think in the chat somewhere, I've lost it now, but we really need to be more coordinated as an international campaign for world peace and under a single umbrella. Well, that's quite difficult sometimes because people have different ideas of what they want to do and how they want to do it. But certainly there are a number of international coordinating groups that are working towards nuclear abolition and also for peace, for world peace. And one of those groups, a large part of that international campaign is the International Peace Bureau. And they have representatives around the world in all kinds of different places and all sorts of countries. I'm not sure how many, but quite a lot. We are lucky enough now to have the retired Secretary General of the IPB with us. He now lives in Leeds, enjoying his retirement as an active member of Leeds CND and Yorkshire CND. We're asking him at this time to give us some words on the TPNW in the context of 60 odd years of campaigning for peace. So Colin Archer is the person. Would you like to say a few words on that, Colin?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Great.
Yeah, good. Well, thanks very much, Dave, and greetings to everybody. Wonderful to see such an array of activity and to hear about all these fantastic creative events and so on. So bravo to everybody for what you or we have all done so far. Now, obviously the focus has got to be on the future, and there are a lot of exciting ideas coming up. And I believe we're going to be discussing this next week at the AGM, and I'm sure Dave will be mentioning that in his concluding remarks next Saturday, I think it is. So hopefully to see everybody again, because this is about how we have a bigger push on activities in Yorkshire in the coming year. But my job now is to have a very quick glance back into the past, because my view is that social change very rarely comes in a single leap. And sometimes single leaps are not always as successful as they might, as they would hope to be. It is a step-by-step process. And in fact, on nuclear disarmament, we have seen a whole series of steps which you could regard as limited victories, but victories nonetheless. And I think that the ban treaty is the latest in a whole string of anti-nuclear victories by the worldwide anti-nuclear movement in collaboration with the non-nuclear governments. So it's this partnership between the grassroots and politicians at all different levels, from the parish council right up to the United Nations. And that's the kind of partnerships that I think we were going to be needing in the future. I've only got 5 minutes. So I'm going to race through this with 5 steps, 5 victories. You know, the very first anti-nuclear protests were immediately after the attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We've mentioned the UN resolution in 1946. But the first communities to mobilize were the victims themselves in Japan and the scientists who had, of course, helped to create the bloody bomb in the first place. So those communities got mobilized very early, the doctors too. And of course, at the national level, CND can, I think, have some pride in the fact that it was in this country that the first mass mobilizations took place with the Aldermaston marches in the late 50s. And the result of that, with a little help from the Cuban Missile Crisis, we got a test ban treaty in 1963, the first of our legal victories. Now, it does say in the title of the treaty, it's a partial or limited nuclear test ban treaty. But nevertheless, it was an important step in signaling that world public opinion was not going to stand for the nuclear nonsense. Now that then led on, I mean, with less support, I would say, from the grassroots, but still because of the tremendous commotion that had been created by the test ban and by the Cuban Missile Crisis, we got the NPT in 1968, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which was, in my view, the second big victory. Now, of course, it's a discriminatory treaty. We all hate it. It's not good enough, but it was a major step in restraining the nuclear hawks at that time, and it still has that role. But of course, we need to add to it. Now, there is then a long gap with the Vietnam War and the Cold War. It was a very difficult time to organize on anti-nuclear issues. But in the early 80s, after the election of Reagan and Thatcher, the Pershings, the SS-20s, you'll all remember that period, we had the beginning of the cracks in the ice of the Cold War. The result was Gorbachev, and in 1987, the INF Treaty. Of course, we had had millions of people mobilizing all over the world, with hundreds of thousands in the European capitals. We had had the Greenham camp, we'd had the peace camps around the country, we'd had nuclear-free zones, we had END. It was the golden era, if you like, of anti-nuclear campaigning. And the result came, it takes a few years, but 87 we had INF, 89, 91, the end of the Soviet Union and the Cold War, and then the START treaties of the early 90s, which began to make serious reductions. Now, okay, the INF was only one type, one class of weapons, but it was a restraint on a particular type of nuclear weaponry. It was a step forward, and the START treaties began to bring the numbers down from the ridiculous 50, 60,000 weapons down to what we have approximately now, 13, 14,000 warheads. Bad enough, you may say, but it was a major set of reductions. The next step, you could say, is the 1995 indefinite extension of the NPT, and the following year, an interesting new development, which was the World Court Project, in which the IPB and many other organizations were actively involved. This was an attempt to have a new approach. It was clear that even millions of people on the streets was not going to bring about the complete abolition of nuclear weapons. Even having these various treaties hadn't done it. So we tried the legal route. We took the question to the World Court, the International Court of Justice, and in '96 we got a ruling which condemned nuclear weapons, but which wasn't perfect. There was a loophole, which meant that some countries said, well, we still want to have these weapons and we think they're legal. But it created a tremendous fuss, and it did raise the question of the humanitarian impact of these weapons, because that's the reason why they're deemed to be illegal, because they threaten civilian life all around the world. Now, from '96 onwards, there was a period in which we didn't have the capacity to have mass mobilizations, but we did spawn a whole number of really creative civil society projects. For example, the networks of parliamentarians, of mayors, of scientists, faith groups, youth groups, and many others. We brought all this together in what was called, what is still called, the Abolition 2000 network. And out of that came a draft nuclear weapons convention, a detailed legal plan so that any nuclear ban treaty could be fully verified. This has not yet, of course, been put into practice, but I think it did pave the way for the next step in my series of victories, which was the creation of ICANN, and of course in 2007, and ultimately the ban treaty in 2017, the Nobel Peace Prize, and now this year, the entry into force of the ban treaty. Now, all of these measures from the 1963 partial test ban treaty through the NPT, the INF, the START, the World Court Project, the nuclear-free zones all around the world, and the ban treaty, they're all partial measures because it hasn't been able to capture all of the nuclear states, or indeed any of the nuclear states in the case of the ban treaty, not yet. So all of this lies ahead of us, but I think it's a mistake to see that this is an entirely new type of development. For me, the ban treaty is a very powerful tool, but it's one of a toolbox that we've been developing for 60 years. And it builds upon the growth of public opinion and public awareness all over the planet. So on the future, I would just say there are 4 directions. One direction is to get more ratifications from the states that have signed the treaty. We've only got 52 ratifications so far, but there could be another 100 among the states that generally support us. Secondly, we need to have a breakthrough in one of the umbrella states, either a NATO state or Australia or South Korea, one of those that are hosting nuclear weapons, ideally, because as someone said, that might create, and it's not a guarantee, it might create a sort of domino effect. But that doesn't really work for us in the UK. Here, I think we've got to press on with all the actions that have been outlined, the political work at the very local level, but also I would say at the national level. Let's not forget the work that we need to do in political parties. And clearly the Labour Party is the crucial vehicle, because we're unlikely to get any other government to sign the treaty except a Labour government, to be honest, possibly a coalition. And I think the other side, that the 4th area I would say, and no one has really mentioned this much, is divestment. I think there is some scope for a naming and shaming operation now, to say to banks, to pension funds, to insurance companies, look, why are you investing in this stuff? It is illegal, it is unethical, it damages your reputation. We will pull our funds out. And this divestment, of course, worked over South Africa. It worked with the General Electric campaign. There's been a number of important examples where divestment from various different financial institutions has been extremely helpful. So I think we're going to be looking at this at the AGM next week, and also others. Perhaps we'll have a working group within Yorkshire CND to see how we can look at the Yorkshire institutions that might then be subject to that pressure. My final point is there's a wild card in this situation here in this United Kingdom, and it's called Scotland. Let's look to those elections in May. If the SNP win, and if they manage to force through a referendum and they win the referendum, you know the implications for nuclear weapons. It could be very exciting. It's not exactly in our hands here in Yorkshire, but I think it's something we should definitely pay attention to and give support to, you know, depending upon your view of the question, of course. But it's a tool that isn't in the toolbox of very many other countries. To create a new country that would declare itself nuclear free is certainly a very interesting prospect. So all power to us all, good luck, and back to Dave in the chair. Mute,
Sorry, I forgot to turn my microphone on. Thanks ever so much, Colin. Wonderful. That was a really good roundup of the kind of things that have been achieved in the past, and we hope that there will be far more to be achieved in the future too. I actually had made a mistake there. I should have left Colin a bit nearer the end, and we should have finished on that note, but I got the order a bit wrong. So we still have to hear from Jonas, our one of the CND works, Yorkshire CND workers who've put all this together. and thanks to him for that. That's been a wonderful event, I think, and some great work there from you, Jonas. Thanks ever so much. Also, I'd like to thank Matt, who's on the call as well, I believe, and he's been fantastic at all the work that he's been doing through the last few years, but this year in particular, he's also been with us to help us work out how we carry on without being able to meet physically. I think it's been an interesting experience. We've discovered that we can actually get more people at meetings by having virtual ones, and we get more of an idea of what's going on elsewhere, but it's, you know, it's not as good as meeting up face to face, and we hope that will come again to us soon. But thank you ever so much for all that you've been doing. I will mention that there is the AGM on Saturday, on the 20th, a week tomorrow. It starts at 5 o'clock. It will be online, of course, and I hope you'll be able to join us for that. We do need to discuss in a bit more detail, a bit more depth about where we go from here, what the regional strategy should be, how do we support local groups. Matt and Jonas and Kath, when she's with us, she's unfortunately been furloughed, or not furloughed now, but she's left us for the moment to work on the COVID problem, but she'll be back, I hope, in the very near future. When she solved that one, she can come back and help us solve the nuclear weapons problem. But we do need to work together. You can use the Yorkshire office to help with anything you want to do. We offer you support. We offer you time from our brilliant campaigners that we've got there, and anything we can do to help will be great. Colin mentioned about divestment, and I'm going to pass over to Jonas now, who I think is going to say something a bit more about that. We want to, as Colin suggested, put into operation some kind of working group around the regional working group on divestment, and maybe on other issues as well. But this is for us to decide, for you to decide at the AGM and on subsequent meetings. So please join us on the 20th, and I'll hand over to Jonas to finish us off. And thank you very much, Jonas, for all the work you put in for this.
Thanks a lot, Dave, and thanks everybody for this. Is such a great coming together of people. My name's Jonas, as Dave said. I'm one of the campaigns coordinators for Yorkshire CND, along with Matt. I just want to reiterate how much of a great event I think this has been. It's just great to bring so many people together, so many great peace campaigners together, and to share like the various experiences of campaigning and activism that people have been doing in their local areas. There isn't really enough of it. I'm not going to say much at all, because I think the vast bulk of things has been said. Just the first point of call really is to say I'm here to support local groups, and I really can't stress enough that if any local group anywhere needs any help, not that you do by the looks of things, because you've been doing great work, but if you need anything at all, any support, or want to work anything through, I'm here, and you can just drop me an email and we can talk things through, and I can try and provide whatever help possible. Another thing is that Dave's already mentioned that Yorkshire CND has an AGM coming up. As well as that, there is a desire to have quarterly regional strategy meetings throughout the year that could really encompass all of you and everyone campaigning in the region. I think we'll talk about that more in the AGM, but I think it's really key in this area where we have international law on our side, that we're constantly coming back to the drawing board and talking to each other and working out how we move forward and what we can do. And I think this today is an example just of how useful these things are and what good they are. And then just finally, just in regards to the divestment strategy that Colin brought up, I think it's absolutely crucial. I think it's really important now, of all times when we have international law on our side, that we hurt the people the manufacturers, and the pension funds and the banks who invest in nuclear weapons, that we hurt them where they care, which is their pockets. And in that sense, I'm going to be trying to coordinate a working group over the next couple of weeks. So if you want to get involved in that, please get in touch. What I'm going to do after this meeting, and which will go out to you on Monday, is just put down a debrief of some of the stuff that we've gone through in this meeting. I'll email it out to everybody and just link things together. And from that, I'll say how people can get in touch if they want to join the divestment group, and all sorts of things like that. So yeah, that's it from me. I just want to reiterate, thank you all for your contributions. It's been brilliant. It's been brilliant hearing just how vibrant peace campaigning is in this region. It really is a model for large parts of the country and for the rest of the world. And yeah, thanks to Dave for chairing as well. It's no easy job chairing, so thanks a lot, Dave, and thanks everybody.
Okay, thank you. We did have a question from Mahmoud. Sorry, he wants to know about the possibility of keeping in touch or being a member of the organisation. Basically, our organisation is really for Yorkshire. We're a regional organisation of the national campaign for nuclear disarmament. By all means, keep in touch. It'd be great to hear from you. And you can always keep in touch by looking at the website, www.yorkshirecnd.org.uk. Send us an email and we'll put you on the mailing list, and we can always send you a newsletter. So that'd be great to keep in touch. So I think that's it. Thanks ever so much to everyone again, and see you all again soon, I think. Bye-bye.